Welcome to another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA. Joining us on the show today is car owner and crew chief Shane Liebig. Before we get to Shane, Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA is your one-stop shop on the way to the races. They have fresh-made sandwiches and subs with all the fixins, perfect for a night at the racetrack. Dottie's has everything you need in one location, including a full-service deli, wide selection of groceries, and gas. If you're looking to dine in, head over to the Hive Coffee House and Cafe for a great sandwich. There's also a seasonal greenhouse on site, and also Dottie's Crab House, where you can dine in for fresh seafood and all-you-can-eat Maryland crabs. Head over to the corner of Canal and Bull Road in Dover, PA. Dottie's Family Market has you covered. Here's Shane. Shane, welcome to the Deep Dive. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Yeah, no problem. You're one of the, obviously a big year for you. I kind of knew your car was fast before this year, but I'd say this year definitely gained a lot of attention. But I wanted to talk to you kind of about, where you came from. Came out of, some people think you came out of nowhere, which isn't the case. But so how did you get into racing to begin with back when you were a kid? I know your family was entrenched in it.
Yeah, so when in the 40s, going back to my grandfather, he was part of the original when they built the Black Hill Speedway out here in the late 40s. And then my dad and my uncles all grew up racing, before sprint cars, like whatever you call them, modified, basically the old cars, 34 Fords, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And they moved into the original sprint cars. And then my dad built sprint cars, and then actually the frames and everything, and repaired them all and did a lot of welding. And my uncle was an engine builder and built basically everybody's in our areas, if you wanted a good motor, my uncle had to build it. So I grew up, in the shop. My dad's shop and my uncle's shop were side by side, and so as a kid, I'd go back and forth. I mean, I'd be scuffing main bearings for my uncle, at 10, because that's all I think he'd let me do at that point, and then learn how to weld, and then, just kind of grew up around it and grew up around a lot of good racers around, and just, learned how to do every aspect of it, seen every part of it, I guess.
You got into, I guess you said about Black Hills and also Big Sky, which we'll talk about a little later. But so you grew up around this and you got into being at the racetrack. I guess you were involved with promoting it, owning it.
Yeah, so I go back, back in the old days, you couldn't race sprint cars till you're 16. I started racing, of course, at 16 sprint cars, and then the only buddy that you guys probably know that I grew up with racing was Schatz. He was from North Dakota, I was from South Dakota. I was, 17. He was 15 when he started. So we've been friends all these years. But as I grew up, I had a parts business, and around here, I was kind of, whatever you want to call it, the hot dog, or thought I was, or whatever, and so then I started a parts business that my dad had already kind of had, and I bought and sold race teams a lot over the years. Joe Saldana seniors, who kind of taught me how to do that, and I did a lot of that, and was in the parts business. Then got into promoting outlaw races. I promoted about 8 outlaw races in the early 2000s: Black Hill Speedway, Gillette, and Billings. And then I took over Black Hill Speedway around 2010 or 11, 2010, and then promoted a couple years, turned it around, had it really going good, and then decided to got out of that for a while, and then was in the parts business again, trailer business, and then 16 I decided to go, 15 I decided to go racing again, and there was this young kid that kind of impressed me in the 360 deal at that time, and his name was Aaron Reutzel, and we ended up hooking up and going to Yuma, and we absolutely sucked at Yuma, but we ended up getting together, and that's kind of when beginning of his career in 410s was a lot with me, and we kind of grew together, right? Because I had always been predominantly a 360 racer. And then our pinnacle was 17 when we went through the non-qualifiers and then got into the main at Knoxville, and then we ended up seventh. Come from the back to seventh, and then he kind of, we just kind of, he was ready for more. I took him as far as I could at that point. I was tired. He wore me out. And so I got out of it again. So then me and a friend of mine, Jerry Bray, were at the Chili Bowl of all things, and we got this dumb idea to buy Billings Speedway because my old car owner up there actually owned it and died, and his wife had it, and so we sat Chili Bowl, and I said, first of all, I remember telling him because he hadn't done it before, and I'd done it. I said, first of all, we ain't got enough money. Second of all, but by the end of this, we won't be friends. And third of all, it's way more work than anybody realizes until you actually do it, And so, anyways, we took Billings, we rebuilt it, and then the fun for me is rebuilding and getting it to that point. And then I was traveling 5-6 hours a week to do that, and so then I decided to get out, and Jerry just took it on himself, and he bought me out, and then I decided to. I think it was in the fall of 22 to go sprint car racing again. So I put a team together for the Jackson Nationals. At that time, it was at the end of the year, and got to talking to this guy that was lettering in my car, Matt Jewell. I kind of liked him. Didn't really have a driver in mind. Well, I shouldn't say that. I actually thought Aaron was going to get. I figured by then Aaron was going to get maybe let go from his deal.
Yep.
And then I thought, hey, we drove up. We're both older now. Maybe we could stand each other a little bit more. Maybe I build this team and maybe him and I could give her one more whirl. Well, he didn't want to leave that guy. That guy treats him really good. And then I just had Matt Joel jump in it, and we went to the Jackson Nationals in 22, and I don't even know. We made the A main and qualified good. Didn't do overly great. And then that winter, I decided to put Caleb Henry in it. And he was a young kid from California. At that time, he'd never left California. So he moved out here. I told him, this is what I expect. You're going to work on your car. You're going to help me. If I'm spending all this money, spending all this time, you're going to be part of it. And he come out. He is such a great kid. I can't say enough about Caleb, how great he is. And we started the year at Huset's. I think it was in 23. And then honestly, we just were missing. We went to Knoxville. We're fastest in practice. We went to Huset's. We were okay. We ran. We were running second the first night. Got flat tire, and then it just kind of. It's hard to really explain. Like years ago, I got to go out and race the Civil War Series in California while I was 23, 22 years old, moved out to California by myself. Well, coming from rural Rapid City, South Dakota to go to San Francisco, let me tell you what a culture shock that was for me, right?
Oh,
And that's what it was for Caleb here. You know what I mean? It's just he'd never raced without his dad. He'd never raced anywhere, really but California, and it just was changed, and it just didn't work out. And he come in one day, and we were about a month into it, and I just, I said, man, you'll be ready for this someday, and you're capable, but just, go home, get your stuff together, and there's stuff you got to get better on. And there's stuff I got to get better on because my cars weren't great at that time. And we split up, and we still talk. I mean, we talked yesterday. And, I'm still very part of. Hope he does the best. But anyways, after that, I put Matt in it for the high banks that year, and we actually were pretty good. He beat Kyle Larson and Schatz in a heat race and passed him. And then in the main event, a guy got into him, tipped him over, and broke his back. So then I'm like, geez. So then the next one, I put Garrett Williamson in because he ran out of motors with his the paver ride, and we put him in, and he tipped over 2 nights in a row at Huset's. So then Paver wanted him back in his. So then I was without a driver again. So then this Boguski had been calling me, and my dad was alive then, and my dad and I, we've always been pretty much broke dicks and never been able to afford and always just wanted a chance. And my dad's just like, man, give this kid a chance. He sounds like he just needs a little bit of, whatever. So I called Boguski back and just said, and we kind of got hooked up from Dissolvoy guy who hooked us up because Dissolvoy, I knew him through Aaron. Yep. And so anyways, I got him in it and we were fairly successful. I mean, we made the AMA Internationals that first year. And, we were competitive. And then I decided to go with him in 24. And we actually were pretty fast all year at Knoxville. Made the A-main again. Finished 8th. Won at Huset's, Jackson. We only ran about 30 shows, so it wasn't like, because that's what I was pretty much capable of. And then I just, to be honest with you, fair or not, I mean, when we got 8th at the Knoxville Nationals, people would say I'm crazy, but I was just disappointed. I knew my car was better than that. And I know a guy shouldn't be in whatever, maybe it's whatever, but I was just, when you got a piece that can really be good. And I mean, we were a top 3 car, and I mean, maybe I'm the only one that's seen it, but I know what we had. And so when we got done that year, I called him, we got everything to park for the winter, and Scott left, and I talked to Guy Forber quite a bit.
Yep.
Guys like, venting to him about different stuff and, getting his opinion on stuff. And, he's been through way more than I ever have, right? And honestly, growing up, he was my hero. That's who I always wanted to drive for, never got to.
Right.
But anyways, he's like, why don't you put this Tim's kid in your car? And I'm like, who? I mean, when I'm there, I don't pay attention to all the noise. I just do my own thing, and I don't worry about what this guy or, I mean, so I truly, all I remembered him was running second to Scott one night at Huset's. And then guy's like, hey, I said, is that the kid in your car? And he's like, yeah. He said, he's really good, and I got to go in for back surgery, and I ain't gonna be able to race with him, but he's good. And I said, I didn't really call you looking for a driver. I just called to, vent and piss and moan and let someone listen, right? And that dealt with different stuff. And he's like, no, give him a call. And I was like, well, like I said, I didn't call you looking for a driver. He's like, just give him a call. Okay, so I get off phone, and I'll never forget this. University of Minnesota was playing because we were both watching the football game, and he calls me like a half hour later, and he goes, did you call that kid? And I said, no. And his exact words, sorry. He says, you're a fucking pussy, and I hung up on me.
It sounds like Guy.
So then he had Randy call me, Ryan's dad, and he says, hey, Guy says we should hook up. I said, yeah, I'm really got my stuff put away for the year, but I didn't really plan on it. He says, well, he thinks we should try this. And I said, well, okay. So let's, he had some midget races, and I wanted to go to one of the SLL races in Wisconsin, but he had a midget race conflicting with it or something. So we decided to go to I-70. I'd never seen I-70. He had never seen I-70. And then we go there and really had a good chance to win, ran second to Sweet. But when I seen him come out of it's a weird deal. When I seen him hot lap, when he come out of turn 2, I remember telling my pit guy that was with me, a friend of mine, Chad, I said, these guys are in trouble. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, that should have been fast time. I said, they're in trouble. And he's like, no way. And we go back, and sure as hell we're fast time, over everybody. And I said, yeah, he looks good. So then we get done that night, the old story, we were in the parking lot, and I tell him to put a seat into the motel that day. It's the first time I ever met him. And he gives me that deer in the headlight look, like, what? Like, because he couldn't bolt the seat in. So I'm like, what am I getting myself into?
Not a good first impression.
And then he's probably, they had a big rig and all that stuff, their own family deal, and they probably thought the same of me. I got a dually and a 40-foot trailer, and they're thinking, man, what are we doing? but it just gelled, and he's such a humble. I remember we were standing on the back straightaway looking out over I-70 before hot laps, and he says, "Man, this is a big joint." I said, "You run a midget at El Toro." He's like, he just shakes his head. Good point. So then we go on to Lucas Oil. We decided to go on to that. We weren't originally going to do that, so then we make up this decision and go to Lucas Oil. Then he passed the suite for the lead there, and his lead, and then the fuel line comes loose, which is completely on me. So then he pulls in, and we actually fix it, and he goes out, and I think he started 24th and got back to 7th in like 12 laps. So he's like, "We got to keep this deal going. Let's go to Texas Motor Speedway." Like, well, I was only going to be gone for like a day for I-70, but yeah, okay. So me and Chad decided to go to Texas Motor Speedway, and of course, we'd never seen that, either one of us, and qualified second to Pittman and Kreitz's car, and then we ran third in the feature the first night. Then the second night, I think we were second or third quick, and I think got fifth. So then after the races, we're standing in the trailer, and he's like, "I want to race for you next year." And I said, "Yeah, but kid, you need to race 100 races a year. 40 is a lot for me. I work on this all myself. I'm the one that does, I'm the truck driver. I'm the changing oil guy. I'm the changing tire guy." He's like, "We got to figure it out." And I said, "Well, just tell me," because at that time, Rudine and the 55 and Roth was all open at that race. Nobody filled them at that point. And I said, "Just tell me which ride you want, and I'll go down and I'll sell you. I'll get you one of them rides." He's like, "No." I said, "Well, I can't do what they can do." And he says, "I'd rather run 40 for you than 100 for them." I said, "Well, you're retarded, but I'll see what I can do. Let's just sit on it." He says, "Let's keep racing." And I said, "Well, the only thing left is the world finals." And he's like, "Well, let's go do that." It's like, "Okay, well, don't get all our panties in a bunch. Let's just think about this, and we'll talk about it and make a decision down there, right?" So we go down, and we, qualify really good. That Saturday before the final, we sat in the rental car and I said, "Okay, here's what I expect. You got to move rapid. You're going to work on this stuff. I'm going to teach you this. You're going to be just as much part of this, because if I'm going to give up kids and grandkids, and I got businesses and wife and 3 dogs, if I'm going to be gone doing this, you need to do your part." And I said, the one thing I don't want to make this over, that all these drivers, I grew up around a lot of them and had some of them that drove for me, they get consumed with money. And it's all about the money and all about the money. This got to be because you want to win, and it ain't because of money. Because I sure the hell ain't doing this over money, because it don't make any money sense. Right. And I said, it's took me my whole life to get to where I can do this at this level financially. And I don't want to waste it on somebody worried about if they're making $200 or getting $500 tow money, or running for a point fund because it's a guaranteed money. I want a guy that wants to win every night. That's all I'm concerned about. So if you can give that to me, then we'll go do this. And he says yes. So he moved up here in January, and he helped me and worked on the stuff with us. And I hired Marty Brenton. Brennan, he worked, our pig guy, he worked for Martin Truex Jr. Well, originally he worked with me with Reutzel. And then after Reutzel, he went on to help Scott G a little bit. And then he went on to be the body hanger for Martin Truex's team in Colorado, the Furniture Row team. And then when that team closed up, he went to McLaren IndyCar and was there 5 years. But he always come back and visited my dad every winter for a week when he had a week off. Because my dad kind of had that impact on everybody, whether it was Aaron, whether it was Marty, or just whoever, right? He was that father figure for everybody. And so Marty come back that winter, or before we were going to Charlotte, and he's like, "Hey, who's going to drive to Charlotte for you?" I said, "Well, I drive everywhere." And he's like, "Well, how about you just fly me back? I'll drive to Charlotte. That's my week off. And I'll go help you a little bit." I said, "Okay, that'd be awesome." So he went with us, and then we were there. Of course, we ended up fourth in the finals. And then when he got back, there was Sambo, mixed him a couple cocktails with Marty, and talked Marty into coming and helping me this year. And that's how we end up getting Marty. Marty come to work for us, and then so we had Marty and me and the kid, and then we started building stuff and kind of set a schedule and wanted to do mainly Jackson and I know to the different people, it's like if you live in Pennsylvania, Port Royal, Williams Grove, them
Yep.
Lincoln, them are all important. Well, here to me, Huset's, Jackson, and Knoxville is our stuff, right? I mean, I grew up when I was a kid. Jackson Nationals was as big as the Knoxville Nationals, and myself, I'd led it twice. Once one to go and lost it, and once for four to go and lost it. So it meant a lot to me, it, some people, whatever. But so we made a schedule, and then we just decided to have at her. And we went to Florida. I thought we were very successful in Florida for us never seeing it. I know we didn't get wins and at that time and stuff. And then we went out to California and just got our teeth kicked in. And that was disappointing. So then when we come back, I kind of went through some stuff. I need to get better on the car. I worked on him. We really started diagnosing. We film every race, just him individually now, and then I break it down, and then him and I will watch 2-3 hours a week, and then we'll watch the regular races so I can see what the guy that was the best there does, show him, and then show him what we're doing, and say, I can't fix this when you're doing this. And we really worked on that, and we started hitting our stride. We went to Knoxville, tested. Then first of all, we went to Knoxville for the Outlaw race, was the opener, and we just got, 15. I mean, we looked horrible. So then I like, we need to commit. We're going to practice. We're going to do everything to get ourselves better, because in August, we want to be our best. So then we decided, we rented the track a couple times. Like one night I worked 2 hours on 2-lap qualifying sessions. Bam, bam, come back in, change something. Bam, I did 25 qualifying, 2-lap qualifiers in one night, one time, just trying to get him better, because that's where he struggled a little bit, was qualifying. And so we started doing that. And then we went to, Houston's, he was already good at. And we just tried getting better there, tried getting better. We hit the stride at the right time, right? I mean, just everything was clicking when it come to the Knoxville Nationals. And, if you give us, I feel like I'm good enough with the car, that you give us enough time, just like Port Royal, give me third. Like at Williams Grove, even I know you guys, I got 10th, but I promise you, we were better than that Saturday night compared to when we started the Friday before. I mean, if you wouldn't have jumped to cushion in qualifying, we'd have been fast time in Group B, I promise you. And I'm not the bragging, but I mean, if we'd have went racer this week, it'd have been a different story. But that's what's been fun with him is he learns just like me. I mean, I ain't gonna have a perfect car, but I give me a couple tries and I'm gonna get her pretty good. And he's the same way. He really does good at correcting his problems or his mistakes.
So what? It's a lot to unpack there, and I'm gonna kind of hit some of the finer points. When you were young, you raced,
Yep.
and up until you raced, like you said, Donnie, that kind of era. I got to ask, did you see the Donnie we saw back then? Did you know that he would be, maybe not Mount Rushmore Donnie, but 300 wins? But did you see a guy who could potentially be as good as he was?
So Donnie was back then completely the opposite of what he is now, right? I mean, he was a balls out, 25 wings in a year guy. I mean, he tore shit up and did. I mean, we talked about, I remember one time we were battling for the lead here. There's like three of us, and he made a move on a lap car and wiped five of us out. I mean, but I mean, when he was young, he tore up a ton of shit. Now, I'm not taking anything away from him. The difference between, I don't know how to say it, because what he's done is unbelievable. You said it, Mount Rushmore. Back then, the thing he had going for him versus others of us that, he had sponsors and family backing that could absorb the wrecks, the blowed up engines, like the guys like me, or there's a couple other guys that are really good around here. we could build one good car, one good motor. If we blew up or tore up, it took us months to get back to that level, right? Where he had 5 or 6, 7 of them. And I'm not taking anything away from him in that mean. I'm just showing you the picture. You know what I mean? It just, did I think he'd be a 10-time world outlaw champion? No. Did he work hard? I think Kenny Woodruff, personally, just watching him, did so much for him. And then, of course, Ricky,
Yeah.
but Kenny's the one that really got him focused and his shit together, because when we're all young, it was all, let's face it, the drivers party and chase women, and it's, he done a lot of that in the day too. But he was always a good guy. To me, he's the same guy I met when he was 15 to me today. We can go, I call him old man now or grandpa. We have fun calling each other grandpa or whatever, but he is that same guy to me. I do wish he would, retire. I don't
Yeah.
like him seeing getting passed around like a high school girl right now. He's better than that. He's accomplished so much. I don't know why, it ain't my decision, but it's shit's changing, and just like when him and I got in, there was fast guys that we didn't remember being fast, right? And now these young kids don't remember him being fast, and
Right.
we know what he's accomplished, and he was one of the baddest guys ever.
You broke your back.
I did.
And well, first off, California. What made you go to California? And you said it was culture shock. I got to know, what were some of the biggest things you saw where you're like, I got to get out of here?
Well, back then I was an iron worker, and so anyways, this guy my dad used to drive for was out there iron working, and then he was on a job site, and at that particular year was like 98. Around here I'd won a ton of races and kind of did everything we could around here, and uh Dan calls me from there. He says, "Hey, I met this guy that owns a sprint car team out here, and they race this Civil War series, Petaluma, Chico, blah, blah."
Yep.
He says, "Oh, do you want to come out to San Jose and race the Trophy Cup?" I said, "Well, sure, whatever. Yeah, I'll try it." So I fly out there, and it wasn't very, it was the last race at San Jose, but big half mile, but which was no problem for me because I grew up on half miles. But I get in the car. It's the first time I'd ever gotten anything that wasn't mine, and like the steering gear had a 3-inch taller shaft in it, so I felt like I was driving a semi, so I looked horrible. Anyways, they talked, they said, "Hey, would you want to come out here and run Civil War Series next year?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'll try it." And so we got, a car where I wanted it and stuff, and the steering gear and all the little stuff. And then I moved out there with Dan and lived on, honestly, he had a camper trailer in this campground out there in South San Francisco. And I'd fold down the kitchen table and that's where I'd sleep. And then I'd get up every morning at 4 when we had to go to work, and I'd work iron during the day to make money. And then after I get off work, I'd do the 2.5 hours to go across the Bay Bridge to where the racetrack was, or the race shop. And we'd work on the car and do all that. But the traffic, number one, was huge. And then, some of the culture, right? Seeing some of that kind of stuff was different, right?
No, it's different.
It's way different. I'm in an S10 pickup, but it was, the tracks, you imagine it's kind of like how I imagine, it's like how we used to think Manzanita was this great, big, polished, beautiful place until you went there, right? And then that's how them tracks were. I thought they'd be a lot nicer. You grow up reading Speed Sport News, and you're like, wow. But my only claim to fame out there, I ran really good at the Chico once, and then I was leading Petaluma Civil War Series and went through a hole and broke all 4 shocks off. It was that rough. But so I come home, and then, well, I was out there working, and then I flew home one weekend, and about a month or two later, I get a call that girl I'd seen off and on was pregnant with my son. So I said, well, I need to go home and be a dad, not chase my dream. You know what I mean? I just, the right thing to do is come home and raise my kid. So I come home and they wanted me out for the Trophy Cup that year. And so I was actually climbing down the ladder at work. And when I climbed down the ladder, a piece of wall fell off. I fell about 15, 20 feet, and then a piece of wall broke my legs and my feet. I had steel toe boots, and it blew out the ends of my toes, and I was on the way to the airport. So then that was the end of it took me, 6, 8 months to recover. Never went back to California again.
Did you race after that again?
I did. I raced for a guy named Harvey Ostermiller out of Billings, Montana. The guy that owned the track. He was really good. He'd come to me and he gave me every piece to succeed, and we won some races. But to be honest with you, that's the memorial race that we won up there this year was after him. But I was never really the same. I wasn't the same. I mean, when I was young, I was relentless. I was the bully. I will run you over to prove a point. My will is more than yours. And after that, I kind of got to be I was like the careful one. I'm kind of like what Donnie is now. That's what I was at about 32.
So you make and I always chuckle when people do this because, obviously I know a lot of promoters and I know what goes on at tracks and I know the pitfalls of promoting. Whatever possessed you to get into that deal? Because it's totally different than racing, actually driving a car. It's different than owning a team. I mean, you're fighting weather, which by the way you can't control. Fan perception, again, you think you control it, but you really don't. And then you're fighting so many factors just to make a buck. What made you get into the promoting deal and then Black Hills and then Big Sky, which I got to ask, are you still friends with that guy?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you were wrong. So, but what took you into promoting? What did you want to just be a part of the sport again, or how did that work?
Well, I would say Brad Sweet could probably tell you that now. As racers, every racer thinks they know everything. I was another one of them, right?
So do
We
media
can do
people.
everything better and blah blah blah. And so and honestly, our track was really getting close to be going away. The guy that had it really when it was shining in the 80s and 90s here was old and had a stroke, and it was pretty much. I mean, we were fearing the racetrack going away. And I grew up there, and in our world, I mean, we had 5,000 people a night here, and it was like it was before softball and all that kind of stuff, but it was like it was life, right? I mean, when you were a driver out there and you win, you could go to any store and you didn't buy a pop because they knew you. I mean, it was that community. You were, I know it's not at the big level, but at local level, it's rock stars, right? I mean, and I just wanted it not to ever go away. I wanted to get it, and my goal was to get it zoned into a historic deal so it would never ever go away. That was my goal. The problem is I got into it and I thought it was a friend of mine financed me on it because I had no money. Uh, when I turned it around and got it really good, then the deals of our deal changed. So
Mysteriously.
yeah, so then anyways, I left, or forced out or whatever you want to call it. And so it sucks because it's pretty much run down again. But then when Harvey passed away, and then the fun of it was the thrill of taking something, I buy old buildings too and I fix them up, take something that's, I used to enjoy buying race teams and piecing them out, like Dietrich does. I've done that for 100 years too. But it it was always a thrill of turning something around for me that got me off, or whatever you want to call it, right? So Billings was in the shithole too, and so we went up there, and I mean, it was amazing how we got it turned around in such an amount of time. I mean, there were 40 cars in 7 classes, and the opening night I had 100 cars in 4 classes, and just we had great tracks, had great crowds. I knew my problem is I always try to make it nicer. Like if you make $10, I'm spending 20.
Sure.
You know, getting everything. I want it nice, 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 nice. And we got turned around, but then it was hard for me because we were running Fridays, Saturdays every other week because I had to drive 5.5 hours. And then I'd bring a crew of people from Rapid City that helped me at Black Hill Speedway. I had my own village of people that always helped me that I could trust and, knew what I wanted. And it just after a couple of 2, 3 years just got tiring. And I just, I knew there was nothing else to accomplish with it. So decided this is it, pulled pin.
You end up getting into the ownership thing, and honestly, I thought you were in longer than you have been, from the standpoint of just an owner. Aaron Reutzel. I saw Aaron Reutzel somewhere around there before you got a hold of him. I thought he was good as well. What did you see that other people missed? Because I always thought he was pretty good.
I'd seen him run that year before at that Yuma deal, and I think he won one or ran up front, and he was just a nobody against Kenzer and them kind of guys. And he just really impressed me, so I watched him and really impressed me. And then Brad Bennick, who builds my shocks still, Momentum was doing his shocks, and so I called Brad. I said, "Hey, tell this kid he ain't gonna know me from Adam because they don't know where Rapid City even is, let alone. But it don't mean people ain't capable." Funny, I want to back that up a little bit. So before I hired him, I went to this kid. I called this kid because I knew his crew chief, Bonsai Bruns, is from around here.
Yep.
I called this kid uh, Sheldon Hodenshow, and he was just barely into it at that point. I said, "Hey, my name's Shane Liebig. I know you don't know me. You want to race my car? At Knoxville, da da da." And he's like, he didn't know who the hell I was, didn't know whatever. So anyway, so I end up hiring Aaron, and Brad helped me bridge that gap. Like, hey, Shane ain't stupid. You know, I said, hey, if you want triple X's, I'll get you triple X's. You want your crew guy to come? I just tried to make it as comfortable as it was for him. And then they come down, and then, like I said, we sucked at Yuma, and then we got our shit together, and we almost won the 20,000 to win race at Jackson that year. That was during the National Sprint League. And he jumped the cushion with like 4 to go, and Madsen got us. And then one night he ran down Lasowski at one of them at Jackson, blew left her tire, but we were starting to show speed. But Aaron is he's everything you want as a car owner in the car. Like he's relentless.
Yes.
He actually gained good. We clashed a little bit because he was old enough that he didn't really want to listen to anybody's advice. As you can see, he don't like really crew chiefs, where I have the leverage because I was crew chief and the car owner. And then, the goods of him is you knew you had a shot to win every time. The bad thing was of him is everything's about money. And that was, you see an interview today, it's still got to make money, or whatever. I know they all got to make money, but how about we just, women's what matters.
That kind of takes care of itself if you're winning.
That's exactly right. And it just he was young and wild, and I was at a different point in my life, and and I'm not. I don't want you to take it as I'm shit talking him. I'm just saying that it just he wore me out.
Well, and it's funny, you go through a couple drivers. I thought Scott was really fast in that car.
He was.
And I think from my standpoint, just watching as many races as I do and the cars I do, and that's when I really started to take notice because of that how well he did in that car. So you get Ryan. Do you feel like you're you're a builder? Okay, this is what you do. You try and build things up. Do you think this is the first time where you're maybe invested a little more than before because the guy couldn't bolt a seat in? Okay. You know what I mean? It's like you're going the extra mile. He's moving up there. He's learning in the shop, so on and so forth.
Um, a couple things. Scotty was really good. Scotty was, um, I thought we got the best Scott you'll ever see out of Scott.
Yeah.
I don't mean that at any, I'm not trying to tear him down. I'm just saying that, again, you go to he's 36 years old and I'm not going to tell him nothing, right? And the good thing about Ryan that's been exciting for me, it reminds me of when I had my son racing mini sprints and stuff as a kid. Like they're just a sponge. Like Ryan really listens. I mean, really, but there's very few guys that can point out that knows, okay, it's over on the right front, left front. I mean, crew chiefs can say they know what all the drivers say. I know what that feels like, right? I mean, and I feel that's my advantage. And but just when I tell them, hey, you got to clean this up. You're sliding this corner. You're going in above the cushion. You remember the cushion's 2 feet from the right shoulder, not right at the right shoulder where your arm guard is. Just different things that I knew. And then a lot of things with him too. When we hooked up, I mean, he was on the verge of quitting himself.
Right. He was on a huge year and a half downslope.
Yep. And he it was good for him for somebody to correct his mistakes because as good as that midget deal is, I'm gonna tell you, it gets some bad habits, and just
I
trying to
hate
break the
midgets.
habits. It's just
I hate it.
uh, it's just but he is like a sponge. He listens. He's humble. He's not arrogant. I mean, I'm not saying it's great, but I was chewing his ass on the red flag at Williams Grove. I mean, chewing his ass, but he just you got to take some of that. I'm more like it feels like I'm more like a football coach, and it's fun because they're. And listen to me, I'm not saying he was good before me, right? I mean, the difference between him and my other drivers, and nothing against them, but the ceiling is so much higher with this kid.
Right.
You can it's just unbelievable, and he just keeps getting better and better and better and teaching and as well, you've been around this race and I know people give a shit about only winning at Huset's or Knoxville or whatever. I tell you what, anybody that ever grew up here, if you ask Doug Wolfgang or anywhere, them ain't easy places to win. It's like living in Pennsylvania and winning at
Yep.
Williams Grove every week. I mean, it's the same type of shit. But you know, he the whole story, the whole thing, how it all worked out is just, I mean, truly, I've been around this my whole life. It's just, you can't write a book over this shit. I mean, it's just the way it all come together and who put us together. I mean, I remember telling Guy Forbrook, but Guy says, if I hook you up to them, don't steal them away from me. And I said, I promise I won't. And then Guy calls me at Texas. He's like, listen to me, Shane. I know I said that to you, but if you guys can hook up, obviously you got something special. You hire him because I wasn't going to hire him because I promised Guy
Sure.
wouldn't be that guy, right? But where we've evolved and where he got, I mean, listen to me. Just like Knoxville, if you just seen how bad we were at the beginning of the year compared to where he won the Nationals, and he did, I would say, 48 and a half flawless laps. And anybody can say, oh, he started pole, he blah, blah.
No, 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 no.
We put ourselves in position. He did. We put ourselves in position. We knew we had it mapped out. And luckily for us, it worked out. But Aaron Reutzel started pole 5 years ago. He couldn't get the job done. Shane Stewart, I think, started pole. He couldn't get the job done, right? I mean, we could go down the list. This kid's 19 years old and got the job done. I mean, what can you say? I mean,
You could have started him in Des
imagine the
Moines.
pressure that had to be. I mean, the pressure had to be abnormal.
You could have started him in Des Moines. I mean, it was a beatdown. What was that night like for you? Just to see, because it's one thing to win, a high limit or an outlaw show. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It is. But the Knoxville Nationals is the biggest race in the court of public opinion, and probably is, to everybody in sprint car racing. And again, he didn't just win it, he dominated it all week. You saw it in the prelim night. You saw it obviously in the finale. What was it like for you to kind of watch where you guys started, where you came from to that moment?
Well, really leading up to Wednesday night, we ran, I think, 10th in the Cappy Classic. I thought we were better than that. And we'd been winning pretty much the weekly shows till then. And I said, okay, we're ready. This is what we got ready to. We're built this. And I said that it all starts with me. And I don't mean that being arrogant. Like what I meant is that if I'm calm, if I'm confident, we're here to do a job. We know our job. Okay, what's our first thing? We need to qualify. Well, the first thing we start with, I do every night. I get on them. We're going to be fastest in hot laps. Now, hot laps don't work, but Rich Vogler hated to lose hot laps, right? I mean, Rich Vogler wanted to win, the pace lap.
Yes.
and so we start with that, and we were top 2 in that. We go, okay, we need to qualify. We qualified top 5. That's what we need to do. Okay, this is where I think the Outlaws and the High Limits are screwed up a little bit, being around this. Every week at Knoxville, we invert 6 cars. So we got to come from 6 in our heat race to try to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about 3 weeks before the Nationals, I said, okay, because you don't really got to win the heat race to get a good position in the main, but you do invert 6, right? So I said, we got to start getting through these cars in the heat early so we're ready for Knoxville. So that's what we started working on. If you go back and look, we won every heat from 6th place for the 4 races leading up to. And this is where I think the Outlaws need to change their format, because you qualify fast, you start on pole. Well, them poor guys, whether you're Gravel, Mancito, whoever, right? They don't know how to pass cars in a heat race because they're not put in that position all week. So it's a whole different format for them, right? Where we're used to passing early, right? And I think that puts them at a disadvantage compared to us. And I mean, if you even think of that night, the Nationals, I think until Mancito the second night, we were the only car in 3 years that come from 8th in our heat race to get in the deal. And Mancito was the second one, but I think it was like, I can't remember, second or third or whatever, but it was the most to qualify, right? To
Right.
get out of 8th spot and qualify. Well, I think leading up to that, the weekly shows with that is what helped us do that. Them guys come in, they set fast timers. First 2, they're starting the first row or 2. Well, that don't prepare you for being behind 3 rows of people. When everybody's talking aero, everybody's talking too tight. Them guys are used to having their cars the best they can when they're out in clean air, and I think that helped us the advantage. So we got a little bit of both, and so we going back to that, we got ourselves in position, got in our heat race, and then that main, I said, let's go show them what we can do, and he did that, which got us high point guy, and then we started pole heat race, and we actually went out and it was the first time he's ever talked back to me. We went out for hot laps that Saturday night, and he got behind somebody, Martin or something, and just he kind of didn't look good. We were about 10th fastest on the board, and we come in. I'm like, what in the is going on? He's like, hey, the car's perfect. Just it'll be fine. But that's the first time he ever said anything like that to me. Like usually he just takes the browbeat, but he said it was fine. I was like, okay. And then he said, so what's the plan? I said, you go out and you be relentless and you put as many of these guys a lap down as you can. And you set a pace so torrid they ain't gonna want to keep up. And think of it, he was behind David Gravel with about 4 to go in that first stint.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 car lengths behind and got Kofoid, and so that worked. And I know, some of that stuff has a thing you get a little irritated with at times, and it shouldn't be, but people saying, well, Gravel, but we put ourselves in position to succeed.
Yeah.
Gravel had the same opportunity I did. I know he passed cars, but he had 50 laps to do it. He didn't do it. a restart with 4 to go, he was still 6 seconds behind, 5 seconds behind. I mean, I don't know what else. We got to run a 100-lap race to make the people say, whatever. But
Yeah.
you've been going to them long enough. I have. That was a beatdown.
Oh, that was probably, well, that was the most dominating one I've seen. But you weren't done yet. As impressive as Knoxville was, and and obviously it's biggest race of the year every year. You went to Port Royal, and as a guy who's at Port Royal a lot during the year, and I see outlaw guys struggle there. Carson Macedo might as well just, if he rolled in and pulled a pill, doesn't matter what pill. If he could finish 10th, he'd take it and leave and not run a lap. That's how bad they are there. You guys, you only had 2 nights, and and I talked to Ryan after he won the Tuscarora 50, and he was like, "Yeah, the first night was we just weren't good. The second night was on me. I guess he finished 7th or something like that. He said it was on me. Tuscarora 50 again, just the class of the field, dominated the second half of that event, and." You said about it doesn't take you long. That was only 2 nights at a place that you haven't seen, and he's only been there a couple times. To win the Tuscarora 50, I thought was equally impressive.
Yeah, to be honest with you, this is gonna sound really stupid, but emotionally wise for me, like at the end of Knoxville, you were like,
Relief.
like you did what you were supposed to do, right? I mean, in our eyes, we did. We started there, we did it. We at Tusky starting 8th, and with Aaron as good as he was up there, and the guys that were good, we went out at the end, set fast time in our group. We were, second fastest in hot laps. He ran third in the heat, and then I knew we had a piece, and he cleaned up. We had some issues he was having, the way he was entering the corner and stuff, that we watched video before that night, right in the trailer on the big screen, and diagnosed, because sometimes he'll go, "You sure I'm doing that?" And then I'll just go, "Okay." And then, but um, for me, I was standing in turn 3, and he pounded that outside turn 2 wall 30 of them laps. And I bet 10 of them were with the right front. And but just to see him, I knew we had a good piece, and I knew he was in the right frame of mind. But that was more exciting for me, coming from 8th, passing everybody, and then just again, absolutely just destroying them. I mean, and it was so emotionally, it was way funner for me, that one. It's like, because we weren't expected. I mean, not that we were expected at Knoxville, but we just kept grinding until we got to that point and didn't give up and got ourselves better every night, and that was it was just magical. Like I said, it was magical.
Yeah, if somebody would have said, "Okay, Ryan Timms is going to win Knoxville or the Tuscarora 50," I would have picked Knoxville.
Yep.
Yeah, but so in the aftermath of that, and I talked about this right around there was all the chatter that you got to go on a national tour, and which I continuously say why. But that being said, are you sick of hearing people say you got to go to a national tour yet? Jesus, it's everything. I know you did an interview with Chaz, and he wants you on a national tour. Everybody wants you on a national tour. I don't think they want to pay for it, but are you sick of hearing that yet? And also, it's got to be, I don't know, a feather in your cap a little bit that Ryan is in no hurry and he's content where he's at.
Yeah, him and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, I want what's best for him. I mean, to be truly honest with you, I could quit tomorrow, retire, and I'll be good. I mean, what I've accomplished, fun. You know what I mean? But um, he's not quite ready. Uh, we got to get better at some other places. I know everybody beats us down about short track. So we race at a short track every Sunday night.
Yeah.
We're capable. You know what I mean? Even like Path Valley, we were capable of winning that. It was just one mistake created a snowball, right? But we need to just get him some experience, some other places. And, it's still, I mean, it took us 10 races at Knoxville to get to that, right? It took us 3 races at Port Royal. The problem is, and the bottom line is he got offered that 18 car at Kings Royal before Emerson Axel. And, the bottom line is that he would have probably been that guy that got let go last week, right? I mean, just like Emerson. Maybe not, but the bottom line is that I think we need to get better. He needs to get better. He's going to be a superstar someday. Like me, 75 races we're going to hit this year has been a lot for me because I've never done more than 40, but he's seeing the other side of that too, which has been good with him here is that all the work and time that goes into, because he's the one that cleans the trailer every week, vacuums the rugs, mops the trailer, gets car wash. I mean, so he sees how much work it is. Of course, we're out in the middle of nowhere, but we're not really concerned. I mean, we talked about this even a couple of nights ago. At the end of the day, we're doing it our way, and we're fairly successful. I mean, yeah, I ain't got 10 outlaw wins or 10 high limit wins. We'd love to have that, but I mean, we won some of the biggest races there are. By the end of Williams Grove, I thought we were pretty good there. I know 10th don't say it a whole lot, but I promise you we'll be good when we go back there and in Eldora. And why not just, some of the local events, even though they're hard, the guys I grew up with that I feel are the best, Doug Wolfgang or even Donnie Schatz. Or for that instance, as well as I do 15 years ago, Mark Dobmeyer. They raced at Houston, Knoxville, the Midwest, to get them ready.
Yep.
And Wolfie's always favorite saying was that if you could win at both them races, who else goes from one of the biggest tracks to the littlest tracks day to day? And you got to adjust.
Good point.
So I feel that's just a great advantage for him. And someday, I ain't gonna lie, when I get him to a certain point and I think he's ready, I told him I would tell him. And then maybe that's time to move on, or maybe we move. But right now, there's no reason for us to do anything different than what we are,
What do you do for a living?
I own a trailer company. We sell like trailers, flatbeds, put
Okay.
truck beds on trucks. I got 7, 8 employees, and like I said, it's tough for me being gone all the time. I'm just lucky that all my employees are really into racing and seen me over the years, and they've all been with me years and years. And because honestly, without all them taking care of this back here, it's impossible for me to go do what I'm doing.
How different is because I see what, Davy Brown Sr. and Donnie Kreitz do. I know they're not doing new things. Okay. They're doing stuff that worked years ago. But how different is it from what you did years ago to now to get a car fast? Can you use those same things to get a car where you need to get it to win a Knoxville Nationals, to win big races?
Yeah, to be honest with you, when we going back to Tusky, I had a conversation Friday night with Brock Zerfoss. He's pitted next to us on what he liked. It wasn't what they were running at that time, but what he liked. And I actually went back in my head to what I ran at our half mile back here, and when we had a similar situation, what the car was doing, what I did, and I did exactly what I did in 1993 at the Tusky, and that's what made made him comfortable, made it work. So yes, I know it's funny being, I remember when it was like I go back, it was weird young guys, me and Donnie, or and we used to laugh about, all the old guys, right? And now we're the old guys.
Yeah.
But David Brown Senior, of course, he was my hero when he helped Wolfie with the Weicker car. But I am doing basically what I ran seventh with in 2017 with Aaron Reutzel in Knoxville is what I won with. And adjustments and the stuff I do, they call us old, they call us whatever, but the stuff I do is the same stuff I did in the 90s. I mean, and I'm stuck in my world. I mean, shock technology's come a little bit further. You know, back then we didn't have tie down shocks or adjustable shocks or stuff like that. So that has changed a little bit. But the overall package of everything, we're running damn near the same shit we did 20, 30 years ago. I mean, truly. I mean, you might have the back of the cage might be 2 inches longer, a little bit more angle or sideboard. I mean, like in Knoxville, I won with 4 different wing configurations this year because I was trying to get the best one. Now I did tool around with that a little bit, and we did a little bit of that at Tusky, but I went back to shit that we did when I raced. You know, that's one of the advantages I think. You know, a lot of these kids, and I mean, we were them at one point, right? But it these kids think they invent the wheel and everything. The biggest thing they all need to stay away from is do your own thing. And I don't give a shit I mean, I'm one of the only ones that still runs my shocks. They call it upside down, but we run the bodies of the shock on the car for unsprung weight. Everybody says, why you run your shocks upside down? Well, that's how me and Carl Kenzer, I mean, I'm not Carl Kenzer, but that's how everybody did it for,
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody changed and that's wrong and this is right. No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, it just some of that shit is just it's comical. You know what I mean? But you know, as a guy gets older, you just see all the trends. You know what I mean? I can't imagine what Davey Brown Senior must think from what he's seen to now. You know what I mean? Because it's fun for me to watch. You know these kids. Well, this guy's doing this. Well, good. I don't care. I mean, I think that's what makes us more. I hope that's what makes us successful is that I do my own thing. I don't care. I mean, I ask people for advice? Not very many. Guy Forbrook, Scott Bennett, Ricky Warner. You know, if I go to a track I've never been to, I ask Ricky Warner, what gear should I run? Because we have the same motors. But, you know, he ain't going to tell me what his shock at 1 inch is going to be.
No.
Just like I'm not going to tell him either. You know what I mean? But, you know, at least the old guys stick together now, try to help each other out a little bit, you know, and they've all helped me a lot with different things as far as, you know, theories, you know, or if I got a theory on something. Because I grew up in the 360 world. I only raced 410s about 2 years myself at Huset's. And so the 410 deal, when me and Aaron got going, it was really new to me then. But it's kind of funny how we're doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, it's like the air duct slits in the hood.
Yeah,
That was done years and years ago
yeah,
because I was around.
yeah.
Taking the radiator out there and qualifying. They all did that. it's and I see it on shows. I know Fiedler did a show and talks
And
about
just like they make a big deal over that, you know, we all seen in Florida about Larson doing the wing deal. Listen to
it.
me.
I,
How many times you think they left that wing silver? I mean, do you think they did not leave that wing silver on purpose
yeah,
so everybody would notice?
yeah.
Any of us that are doing anything show something obvious, so they ain't looking at what we're really doing, right? I mean that's, I mean you were around when they used to say about Carl Kenz. Remember, if he tied a turd on his hood, everybody
Yep,
tied a turd on their hood.
yep.
Same thing.
It
We all
was.
changed headers. I mean, you said that, take the radiator out. Remember when we used to put mini sprint tail tanks on for qualifying?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you know, it's
yeah.
you
The
know,
headers used to be turned up, but Carl did all that stuff.
yeah, take the air cleaners off for
Yeah.
qualifying. I think that's a new thing that was done 100 years ago. But it's kind of comical, you know, because most of these kids, honestly, unless you're 40 or above, they don't even know who Carl Kemper is, right? I mean, that's what's crazy.
I think the only one I know like Geo and Buddy do. I know Buddy knows who Steve Kinzer is because he watched him that's his guy. And I've talked to Buddy a lot and at Gold Cup. He used to, when he was young, he saw him. But yeah, I mean it's
We've really spent a lot of time, like when we're in the shop, we make not make, but we always have on all the old shit from
Yep.
the 90s, and that's where Ryan learned who Doug Wolfgang was, learned,
Oh,
and sees how good they all, because they heard, but they never really seen, right? And, you know, or, like when we're Johnny Herrera owns car next to us and see him win the King's Royal, or, just different, you know, different people that they, might not know. Got to remember they're 19, that's 30 years ago, right? I mean,
yeah.
all of them are just, yeah, it's definitely different.
Show him the 1985 season. I saw a lot of that. Doug Wolfgang was my guy growing up. I started going to races when I was 5, which was 77. Started sprint cars probably 84. And the reason I even went to Williams Grove was I saw a commercial on television and I thought he had a cool name. And I said, "Hey, Dad, why don't we go see the Outlaws?" We heard about him, At that point, I liked Smokey Snellbaker because he ran at Penn National a little bit. But then I started watching Doug Wolfgang, and that was it. That was, and 1985, 1989, just the run at Knoxville in 90,
Yep.
all that stuff. So,
85 was my first Knoxville. And of course, being from South Dakota, Doug was our guy, right? The only
yeah,
race we lost that weekend was the Trostle's car and the race estates he used to have back then.
yep,
But yeah, no, like, when I tell people going back to our Knoxville deal, the only ones that I can compare it to is I remember what Doug did in 85, 89, and probably Steve Kenzer in 87.
yep.
I felt them were all dominant, you know what I mean?
There's no question. What do you think kind of educating Ryan about the history as well as working on the car, do you think that helps him as a driver just to see that stuff because it gets discounted. People get caught up in the minutia of what they do daily. Like guys. I mean, do you think that's helped Ryan kind of develop and become what he is today?
I do. I think it definitely helps. We all need to know about history to appreciate the present, right? And I think watching them, he watched a lot of old races, even at Knoxville. Wolfie, Steve. Like when that year Steve passed Dave Blaney and Bobby Davis Jr. right at the end. And I do think that helps him a lot. I think I feel like what another thing that helps him, not that is the I hope that what I bring to him is I tried to make him a killer. When I got him, I told well actually Dre's from Toyota, I was trying to hustle them at the finals last year, and I said, "You give me a year with him, and I'll make him a killer by the end of next year." And they're all like, "Yeah, right." And I hope what I brought to him is the mentality, the winning mentality. Like, you know what I mean? Basically like I told him at Knoxville, right or wrong, I didn't think anybody would actually record it. I didn't know that, but I said absolutely no mercy. Fuck these guys. I want them to think, we're the ones here setting the tone, not, and trying to get them in that mentality because it's easy for young kids to get beat down.
Sure.
And when I raced, I was the guy that picked a fight, right? I mean, I that's what motivated me. Like if I remember going to, I told this story, but I remember going to Huset's in 98 or 99 when Terry McCarl was the badass. He was such a badass there. But I remember going there every week. Chuck will about it now because I hope he would. But I remember going there every week because at that time I was pretty built and iron worker. And I went there every week just hoping I'd get in a fight with him because he was the big bad bully, And I mean, I used to pick out a guy who was their fastest at a racetrack, and I'd slide him in hot laps to say, "Hey, here's a line in the sand. I'm coming." And and now Ryan ain't as extreme as that. He's pretty calm, but
Yes.
I'm trying to bring him that mentality. And I always tell him to. Um, I don't want him to be. At times I thought A Rod was a little ruthless. Got carried away. and I don't want him to be that, but you still got to be, you know, another guy. When you get in a car, you got to hit a switch, and you got to be that, relentless and no quit and no don't give up. And if you ever look at any of his races, if you actually look at the lap times, I guarantee you, 90 out of 95 races, his fastest laps of the race were the last five, because he just is so in tune by the end of the race and never gives up, which is fun. Which is fun for me, because I've had drivers where, like, if they're running 10th, they just kind of lay up and they paycheck driving, or they ain't trying, or
Settle in.
that's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, Shane,
It's been a magical ride, Jeremy. I mean, you can all say, I mean, we went in the year thinking this, but everything that's happened has been really surreal. And I mean, I can tell you that we didn't ourselves expect to go do this stuff, but it's pretty amazing what we've accomplished. I mean,
last thing, what's the rest of the schedule look like? I know you're going to Lakeside this week.
we'll go to Lakeside Friday and Saturday, and then we'll go to Wheatland on Wednesday, Texas Motor Speedway for the high limit finals Friday, Saturday. We'll come home, and then we'll go to the World Finals.
Well, Shane, I appreciate you joining us on the show. I know you got to get to Lakeside. I will see you in Texas. I'm making my first trip to Texas ever. So I look forward to seeing you. I'll catch up with you down there. But again, thank you for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate the questions, man. Yeah.
No problem. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
That's going to wrap up another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by Dottie's Family Market in Dover, PA. Thank you very much to Shane Liebig for joining the show. A lot of good stuff there. Also, if you like the content on our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can also check out our daily exclusive content at SprintCarUnlimited.com. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Deep Dive.